Hi. Summertime and the living is easy, but the makeup might not be, especially on an older face. My name is Tricia and I'm founder and MD of Look Fabulous Forever, and we make a range of products specifically formulated for older faces, eyes and lips. This video will show you how to enhance your looks with makeup so that you achieve a really pretty summertime effect. So for this video we've got Jackie, who you can probably see has just come back from holiday where she's been to Mallorca, lucky her. So she's lovely and tanned, and our makeup artist is Linda. So the first product that Linda's going to use on Jackie is the light pen, which sounds strange to start with this, but because we're going to put a bronzer on later, we want the effect that the light pen creates, but we don't want to cover it over with the bronzer. So where Linda's putting it, I hope you can see, is she's just putting a small amount underneath Jackie's eyes. The whole effect that we're trying to create with this look is a light summery effect. So the light pen is really going to help, applied in the way that Linda is applying it. So just patting it into the skin and around that under eye area. Next thing, we are going to apply a base with the prime mixed up, but the way that we're going to do it for this look is quite lightly and more or less in the centre of the face. Because Jackie's got some colour on her face because she's been in the sun, this will unify her skin tone and look better, but we don't want it to look heavy. So starting with the forehead, using the brush and just smoothing it in with the fingers. What you're always doing with base is you're applying it into rather than onto the skin. And a good base like ours will add colour and evenness, and it will also cover up any blemishes that you've got and any red patches and so on and so forth. Not that Jackie's got those things, but if you have, then obviously base is very important to do that. Quite a lot of women just wear a tinted moisturiser during the summer, and if your skin is perfect, then tinted moisturiser is absolutely fine. But unfortunately, the ageing process often renders our skins less than perfect. So even in the summertime, we do need a bit of extra help. So the next thing that Linda's going to do is use the concealer. It's always useful when you've applied the base to check in the mirror and see if there are any areas on your face that need a bit of extra help. Our concealers match the base colours, so 01, 02, 03 goes with 01, 02, 03 Conceal. So we've used 03 on Jackie and we're just using 03 Conceal now. And you can see where Linda is putting the product, so around the base of the nose, and she doesn't need very much, but it just, as I said, continues that flawless finish that we're trying to achieve. So next thing is going to be some eye primer, and the eye primer, always useful to keep anything that you then put on top nice and securely in place. One of the problems that we have as we get older is that eye makeup tends to go walkabout. I think it's to do with the fact that the skin that we have has become a little bit like blotting paper. And the analogy actually holds quite good because blotting paper is very absorbent. It's also a little bit bumpy. And if you try and draw a straight line with pen onto blotting paper, it feathers and blurs. And the same thing happens with our eye makeup when we're older. So eye primer stops that happening. It means that anything that you put on top stays put. Next thing is going to be Jackie's brows. And brows are about framing, and they're about proportion and symmetry. When we're looking at a face, we think of very beautiful faces. We think of them as beautiful because they're often very symmetrical. And our eyes just love symmetry. And brows really add to that effect of balance on a face. So if your brows are overplucked or they're very pale, then what you can do is put the shape and definition back by using something like our brow shape. You can see what Linda's doing here. She's just using light feathery strokes just to build up enough colour. Obviously with Jackie's colouring, you really don't want a heavy look. And this is a summertime look, so we're going for something that's quite simple and uncomplicated. And then using the spoolie brush, which is brush number 6, just grooming those brows. And what's good about using the brow brush is that if you put on slightly too much product, you can take it away and just get the finished effect that you want to achieve with it. So the next thing that's going to work on Jackie's eyes is the cream shadow. Now, this is a lovely colour when you've got a tan. We're going to use 2 matte shadows on Jackie's eyes. First of all, the cream, which is obviously a neutral colour and is light. So the effect of using these 2 shadows on Jackie is going to open her eyes up, make them look bigger. So Linda's starting using brush 7 just to work that colour into the eyelid on top of the eye primer. The reason that we're using matte shadows is again because older eyelids tend to be dry and quite crepey. So what you're doing is not drawing attention to them by using glitter and shimmer, but you're still enhancing them. And this really is the best way to do that. These colours are going to be particularly pretty on Jackie. Jackie has got cool toned skin, and with her colouring, her hair colouring and her eye colour, these are going to be particularly pretty and very summery as well. So again, using brush 7 and using the shadow that's called Aubergine, Linda's just putting a wash of that colour over the eyelid. So that's quite an effective shot there. You can see with Jackie's eyes closed just exactly what Linda has done with that shadow. So using a finer brush this time, this is our brush 5, Linda is again using the aubergine colour and just taking some shadow underneath the eye on the outer edge. Again, because we're creating this light summery look, we're not doing anything heavy in the way of dark lines. So just using a clean brush to work those shadows in, making sure there's no hard lines. Now, eyelash curlers. So a really good tip when you're older and your eyelashes perhaps are not quite so luscious or as long as they used to be, is to use curlers. This is much easier on yourself than it is when you're doing it on somebody else. You can feel instantly on yourself you've got them in the wrong place. So you just pump the eyelash curlers a few times until you've created the effect that you want. They look like instruments of torture, but they're not. They really aren't, and they really are effective. So onto the other eye. So having curled your eyelashes, obviously the next thing to do is to apply some mascara. And starting with the lower lashes, using the end of the mascara wand just to work the mascara onto the lower lashes. If you don't put mascara on your lower lashes, then try it out and see the effect. I think it's actually quite interesting because you can make your eyes look a lot bigger if you put mascara on the bottom lashes as well as the top lashes. If you think about it, your eyelashes frame your eyes, and mascara makes your eyelashes thicker, so the framing is better. So top lashes, just wiggle up, wiggle up. What you're doing is you're working the mascara into the base of the lashes and pulling them up, so onto your curled lashes to get the best possible effect that you can achieve. Our mascara does make your eyelashes nice and thick, but it won't lengthen them. I think filament rich and heavy mascaras when you're older can look quite straggly and a bit spidery. It's not a particularly pretty look. But the Fabulous Lash Mascara gives them really great definition, but they still are quite pliable and bendy when you've got it on. So it's quite a natural effect. So next, some really pretty blush. And again, for a summery look, just a light amount of blush. You've probably already got quite a lot of colour in your face if you've got a slight tan, but this is pinky toned rather than the sort of browny orangey tones of a tan, and it's an instant lift and an instant prettifier. Now we're going to put on some lip prime. Lip prime, like eye primer and face prime, all very, very useful when you're older to really keep the products where you want them to go and to make them last longer. So this will keep your lipstick looking fresh for longer, and it will also make sure that there's no movement of the lipstick into the lines around your mouth. The lipstick that we're going to use is Heather. This is a really soft, pretty, quite palish browny pink. This is going to be especially attractive on Jackie with the eye shades that we chose, which were aubergine and cream. So all working together really nicely. And finally, we're going to add a touch of bronzer. Using our big fat brush number 1. So getting sufficient bronzer onto the brush, and then you'll see what Linda does with it. So just using these sweeping circular movements. And what you're doing with bronzer, you're really trying to put a little bit of a glow and a bronzy colour onto those areas of the face where the sun would naturally hit. So obviously onto the cheekbones and onto the forehead, as you saw there with that Linda did. And this is just so pretty. And taking it down onto the neck, because Jackie's quite tanned in that area, really makes a big difference. So there we have it, a really pretty, lovely, light, uncomplicated, summery look. And I think Jackie looks absolutely gorgeous.